Hey everyone, welcome to the Powered by Iron Health podcast. I'm Joe, this is Alina, and we are here to give you knowledge and talk all about health, fitness, mindset. Our big vision is to create a community that raises the standard of health and wellness, and we're hoping that some of the knowledge we bring here helps raise that standard. So today we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic that is close to me and I've struggled with my whole life. It's weight loss. So we're kind of going to do something a little different. I think Alina's going to kick us off and we're going to see where this takes us.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about weight loss. And as Joe mentioned, it's been something that he's struggled with. So a lot of people do. And I will definitely go back and forth between asking him questions and then also try to make it relatable because a lot of the things that Joe has struggled with in the time that we've been together, a lot of people do. And we see it all the time, especially in Iron Health. So I like to ask people and start with what their food story is. Joe, can you tell us what your food story is?
Food is everything. Food is love. Food is happiness. Food is sadness. Food is anger. Food is frustration. So food was always the answer. Like growing up, obviously an Italian background, and anytime we had something, my mom would just feed us to make us feel a certain way. So literally, food is everything.
Food is the question and the answer.
Yeah.
What do you want to eat?
What do you want to eat?
Right?
What do you want to eat? You
What do you want to eat?
sad? What do you want to eat?
Yeah.
Mad? What do you want to eat?
Yeah. And I think it's really important to just tap on what people's food story is. For me growing up, food was not the answer to everything. Food was kind of a scarcity thing where we were not like ration, but there was always like just enough or not enough for more than our immediate family. So it's very different coming into a family with completely different food stories, but understanding your relationship with food, hence your food story, is so important because that's going to dictate your decisions in the future. And if you don't have an understanding of at least what food meant to you at one point, it's hard to really change it. Again, Joe and I have been together for about 8 years. And in that time, I've seen you go through cycles of weight loss and frustration about lack of weight loss, and I've seen you attempt things but not fully. So, can you kind of share with people what your struggle has been?
Yeah, I think a big part for me is like I'm an all in type of person. So if I'm doing something, I'm doing it completely to its fullest. So like, let's say, for example, when I've lost weight in the past, and I lost a lot of weight, I would be able to maintain that for a certain amount of time. But then there's like, and you always say there's like a switch in my head. As soon as I am in a certain position where either I eat too much or I'm like, my mind's like, oh, food, I just want to eat. Like it's just a fuck it button. And I just go down a path of just kind of binge eating and eating for comfort. Um, so that's always been the issue where it's like I'll lose weight and then it's not sustained. And then I get frustrated because I'm like, damn, what am I doing? And by the time I realize it, it's, I'm 20 pounds heavier. So that's kind of really been my cycle.
Yeah, for sure. That's so common. And one of the questions I want to ask you, because we talk about this all the time, is do you believe in, I know you don't believe in balance in general, but like when it comes to weight loss, food, and lifestyle. I don't want to use the word diet necessarily, but just nutrition and choosing foods and habit based eating. Do you believe that there's anything outside of an all or nothing mentality at this point, or is that the only way? You're either all in or you're not in at all.
I think right now it's still too early for me to have a definitive answer. So, like, I wouldn't be able to change the way I eat right now. Like, I need to track, I need to be on top of it just because my default is to overeat and eat too much and not measure things and say, oh, just a little bit here. And that's where it takes me down a path of kind of destruction. So I think for me, like right now, it's like tracking so necessary because of my background and because of I've been yo-yoed that I like tracking has to be such a part of my life. So I think I needed it's just an acceptance that it's a part of who I am now.
That's great. And a new, like identity shift, which is huge when it comes to weight loss and sustainable weight loss, is changing your identity around it too. Because if you believe that you're overweight and you're always going to be overweight, then once you have sustained your weight loss for a certain period of time, you're going to have that subconscious belief that's going to take you right back to where you were. and you're going to choose actions that follow suit with that. For you, you mentioned tracking. I don't know if everyone knows what that means. So, one of the questions I was going to ask is what has worked for you in the past? And if you can talk about that a little bit more, and I'll also dive in because I've helped you do those things.
So what has worked for me?
Yes.
Let's
The times that you have
I
lost
think it's
weight.
a great question. Let's start with the identity shift though, because I think we touched on that a little bit, but like if we can elaborate on how to really get that going and like how does someone change who they are? Because I think that's at the end of the day, that's probably the bottom of the pyramid, right? Like how do you change the way you look at weight loss and if you are overweight, how do you lose weight and keep it off? So how does someone start to develop a new identity in that category? Like what have you seen?
Well, first of all, I would say that identity is actually at the top of the pyramid. That's the last thing that changes. It's a necessity, but it's one of the last things that change. Usually, what happens is people will start to make changes. And if they're successful with the changes that they've made, and this is why it's so important to work with somebody, because if you're not successful, it doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means that you need to try a different approach. But once they start making changes, you start to feel better and you start to develop a confidence and a trust in yourself. And then once you start to build that trust and that confidence in yourself, that's when your identity shifts. When you do that day in and day out, and you have the confidence, you have the knowledge, and you know that you're going to show up for yourself. And truly, I think that's one of the biggest things because we live in a world right now that is so inundated with marketing messages that we're not enough and that you need to be doing X, Y, and Z. And so the answer is always outside of us. And if we're always thinking, well, this is where the answer lies and it's not in my actions, like people say to me all the time, thank you so much for, you did this for me. And I didn't do anything. I just gave some tools, guided the way, was a buffer, an ear, maybe a motivator when things got tough. But at the end of the day, the person has to take the actions. I'm not spoon feeding somebody. And if I'm not with somebody, they're still making choices, right? So it starts with the knowledge or having a plan and then executing that plan, starting to build momentum, starting to build confidence in yourself, build trust in yourself. And then over time, you shift your identity. But you have to have that desire to want to shift your identity. And you have to have enough pain attached to that old version of you that you don't want to go back. And so that's why I think that when people do sustainable weight loss and it takes time to lose the weight, they're less likely to gain it back because they have that association with how much work and effort it actually took to get them to a place of feeling good about themselves again. So they're less likely to go back.
Interesting. So for you, if you're saying that's the top of the pyramid, then what if someone is not confident in themselves at all? And like weight loss being the example and they have no confidence in themselves, like what are ways they can develop the confidence if you break it down to that's the first step, right?
Small daily things. Make a small and if you can't achieve more than two things, then don't make a checklist for more than two things. Because then you're gonna instantly feel like a failure. If you can only do one thing, then just do one thing. Right? If you're sedentary and your goal is to lose weight, and usually I'll have conversations with people, it's like pretty standard stuff in terms of when you look at the modern American, it's walk more, eat more protein, less processed foods, get better sleep. If that's a lot for people to handle, then choose one. Walk more. It'll help your mental health, it'll help your digestion, it'll help your glucose, your insulin. Walk after you eat if you can. If that's if you're not able to do that, then increase your protein. But just pick one thing that you can start checking off regularly, and then you'll start feeling good that you were able to show up for yourself. And then that snowballs like, oh, I can do this. It's not as hard. But when you have, for some people, when you have 17 things and you feel overburdened and overwhelmed, you kind of just throw in the towel because there's no way I'm going to do 5 new habits in a week. That's when it gets hard for people to follow through and they feel like it's not worth it. They're not going to be able to do it.
So one thing on your checklist for weight loss is beneficial. And you said usually it's what? Sleep, protein, exercise.
Getting steps in. Is that what you meant?
Yeah,
So, yeah, protein, sleep, steps, less processed food.
less processed food. I think those are good, valuable lessons right away to start with capturing a win because like for me too, like I look at my heaviest and I'm like, damn, like how am I gonna take the steps in the direction to go where I need to go or want to be? Just having that checklist is valuable. And then delaying gratification is the other hard thing.
And that's where people throw in the towel all the time.
So what has worked? I think we like I side quested there because I think it's important because we talk about these big topics and it's so non-digestible for people. It's like just do one thing and start there. But for me, what has worked in the past and what is working like now, if I had to put it in a bubble or a kind of hierarchy, it's really first the commitment, right? Having a big enough why. So it's just not as much as an identity shift now, like to your point. It's what is the why behind I'm doing what I'm going to do? Because motivation's just going to take you so far. And then it's the discipline that takes you to the next level, right? So what is your why when you're feeling tired? You just want a fucking pizza. What is your why? So I would say having a why, and obviously we have a kid now, and it's my son. Like thinking about like when he's older, I want to be the best model for him, and like that's such a big, powerful why. So anytime something's getting hard, it's like, where's my why? What's my why? What would Roman think? What would Roman think? And it just allows me to make decisions that are easy because now I'm being kind of pulled to it rather than pushed. That is like a big factor in this realm. The second level I would say is, you know, I run a business and I tell my staff all the time if it's not tracked, that didn't happen.
What gets measured gets done.
So having a macro counter is very important. Um, and obviously like now I'm doing things too where I'm tracking my workouts and my weights just because it's become so apparent to me that tracking works. And yes, it could be tedious and annoying, but like it works. It 100% works. And like you have to know everything you put into your mouth. Like, and yeah, and that doesn't mean I won't have a cheat meal, but you have to know everything that goes to your mouth for me, tracking. And then the other thing is really just the exercise component, like just making sure I'm diligent and hitting the gym at least 5 times a week, whether it's jujitsu or going to the gym. So those are my big three things, like tracking, the why, and then exercise.
Consistent exercise. Yeah, and tracking macros is huge for a lot of people, and typically when I work with people, I'll have them track in the beginning what they're eating just to get a gauge of where improvements can be made because if you don't have a starting point, it's hard to know how to get to your destination. So that's no matter what. And if you're not tracking macros, you don't have to track macros. If you want to dial it in, you can, and it's very, very helpful. I know it's not the right tool for everybody, and I think it's really important to understand, and I said this earlier, why it's important to work with somebody. It's important to understand who you are as a person. So Joe mentioned that he tells people all the time if it's not getting tracked, it doesn't count in essence, right? And that's a principle that he uses to run his life. So macros fits perfectly in that principle. And understanding yourself and what works well for you is really important because if you're not aligned with your approach, then it's going to be harder to execute. You're not going to feel driven by it. You're not going to feel excited by it. You're not going to feel aligned by it. So I think it's really important to work with somebody for that reason. And not everybody is for everybody. You know what I mean? I might not be the coach for everybody, or not everyone would be my client. So it's important to know your method, your approach, how you like to be guided. If weight loss is something and fat loss is something that you really struggle with too, I think it's really important to have that accountability system because doing it on your own, it's possible. It's definitely possible. I think it's a little bit more challenging than having a support system, having the guidance, having the knowledge to do it. So that's just what I think. I would love to hear in the past, because like you said, you've done this before and I've seen you do it before too. What were you so resistant to in the past when you wanted to hit this goal and you didn't, or you didn't want to take action on the things that could have potentially helped you?
I don't think it's a matter of resistance. I think it's a matter of discipline. I think like I said, we're coming to the end of the quarter one, 2025. Everyone sets their New Year goals. and your New Year goals, and this is a story I tell myself, but like your New Year's goals can drive you for the first 2 quarters. It's after the 2 quarters what makes the difference. So in the end of the day, I really think it's discipline because I have no problem with staying on track for 3 to 6 months. Just a matter of like, can this be disciplined and sustained at a certain point? So I really think that's the answer, and I think a certain point when you start to go down this path, like you start to gamify it. You have to, for me, and again, what you said before was really valuable. Like you might, you have to see what works for you, what kind of personality you are. Like I like to gamify things and refine and see where I can be better in certain categories. So let's say down 3, 4 months, like all right, this I need to change my workout up, or I need to change something in my macros to adjust the way I feel, or just like it becomes like a science experience. So gamifying it can be something that you approach it from a fun perspective rather than work. So that's kind of where my new mindset is on it.
It's definitely a mindset shift, but I know you, and there was definitely resistance in the past.
What do you
So
mean by resistance? Like, what does that mean? If someone's out there and they're like, "Oh, I've lost weight," and you're saying the resistance, what does that mean?
the resistance. No, I'm
The
kidding.
resistance of food,
No, what I'm saying
Italian food.
is in the past, like you've felt like you were spinning your wheels and you're like, why is this not working? And I'd be like, this is what you need to do. And then be like, there was a resistance where you would be like, you wouldn't want to do some of the things because I think it seemed hard to you or inconvenient or I don't know. That's where what I'm trying to ask. Like, what was it? Because and the reason I'm asking this is because sometimes when I sit down with people, this is a very common one. I work with a lot of women, and we live in this culture where we have been drilled with calorie deficit, calorie deficit, calorie deficit, calorie deficit, cardio bunny, workout, aerobics, cardio, 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 cardio. And so a lot of the times what happens is our metabolism starts to adapt because we're running on negative energy and our body needs to get that energy from somewhere. So what I'm trying to get at is for a lot of women, I will say you actually need to eat more and there's resistance around it. How can I eat more? How could like to wrap your head around the fact that eating more will actually kickstart your metabolism and how your body is using energy is like an atomic bomb is going off. And I feel like to some extent that has happened for you in the past where I've said, do this, try this thing. And there's a resistance to it where you didn't want to. You're doing it now. But in the past, it wasn't always like that.
So resistance or stubbornness.
I think it's resistance.
I think, for me, a lot of it too is I'm inherently lazy.
Yeah, we say this all the
I don't
time.
think a lot of people know that because they're like, oh, he has a business. He does all this shit, but I'm inherently lazy. Like if I could choose to sit down on the couch and do nothing, I would do that 100 times. And I have to like force myself every day to do stuff. So getting over that is like a biggest hurdle. Like I don't know if it's really resistance or to your point, like don't like do these things because it's gonna get you better. It's more of just like I'm just lazy, and that's a mindset shift too. Coming from a family where we got fed everything and my mom did everything. Like let's be real, learning how to do things for myself was a challenge, and I'm still learning, and I'm an adult. So I think that's more of a factor than anything else is finding the patterns I had from my childhood and trying to rewrite them to say I'm not that person anymore. And the hard part is like that's so grooved into your brain that you have to consistently check it. And that's where I think discipline comes in. It's like, no, that's the old way of thinking. It's the old way of thinking. I have to do it this way because this is going to benefit me in the future. Delayed gratification, discipline. Those are big things that come to my mind when we talk about this.
And that goes back full circle. That's your food story or your story, your beliefs about yourself, what it takes, how you're going to get somewhere, if it's going to last, and all of that. So,
Yeah, I agree.
what questions do you have for me on weight loss and fat loss?
Well, the first one would be, can you eat penne vodka chicken parm? That sounds good.
Yeah, if you track macros, you can totally weigh that out and
All
eat
right,
it.
so that would be the other thing. Let's dive into macros because we keep talking about macros, and it's, to us at this point, it's second nature, but some people have no idea what that is. What is it? How do you do layman's term to discuss with someone about macros and what it is?
Okay, so the way I like to describe macros is when we eat a food, our body files that food like in a file cabinet. And we have protein, fats, and carbs. Those are the three macronutrients that our body will use as energy. So anything we eat will fall into one of those categories. And once we eat it, our body will be like, oh, this is a fat, and this is how I'm going to use it. Oh, well, this is a carb. This is how I'm going to use it. Oh, this is a protein. This is how I'm going to use it. So anything you eat is going to fall into those three macronutrients, or the big nutrients. And then there's micronutrients, which I won't get into, but that is macros. So when we say tracking macros, if you're eating penne vodka or chicken parm, if you weigh out 4 ounces of penne vodka, or sorry, a cup of penne vodka and 4 ounces of chicken parm, and you track that, of course, there's going to be carbs in there. There's going to be fat in there from the cheese. And usually, if it's fried, then there's going to be fat there too. But the chicken is protein. So technically, you're hitting all three macronutrients. It's just a matter of the balance of them. And you want to, when you are tracking macros, you're eating a certain balance depending on your goals. So a typical breakdown that I give people that's pretty standard in general will be if you have 100% of what you eat, right? You break it up into maybe 35% is carbs, 35% is probably 35% is too high fat, maybe like 25 to 30%, and then the remainder is protein. So that's how I would describe macros.
Great. And any of your clients, because I've seen you work with a lot of people in the past, what do you see as one of the biggest stories that they tell themselves about weight loss?
Like I said earlier, the hardest client for me to work with is a female who does not have the I don't think it's that they don't have the desire. They're so afraid of food because it's been villainized for so long that to eat more food is going to actually help them. That's the biggest thing that I see. Um, that people tell themselves like I can't eat that. I can't eat that, or that it's hard. That making changes is hard. That's a pretty big general one, and that's not just food, that's also fitness, but that's a big one too.
So how do you intercept and try to help them or help or coach them? How do you coach them in either of those categories?
It depends on the person and it depends on their struggle. And I would say for somebody that's really struggling to eat more, I start with things like protein, eat a little bit more protein, just add one snack. Add a snack to your day. See how you feel. See that you're not gaining weight by adding one snack, because there's this perception that if you eat more, you're going to gain weight. Try eating one snack. It's an extra 150 calories. You're going to be okay. And I just encourage them to do that. And usually they feel better because they're getting more nutrients. Their body has more energy to burn. And also, I'll just pose a question like, you've been doing it this way for so long, and this is the result that you're living in. So, what if you do just change it? What's the worst that's going to happen? If you gain a couple pounds, I'm here to help you, but that's not going to happen. You're probably going to end up losing weight or just, maintaining and feeling better. So that's one way. And then I really just focus on habit changes, honestly, and just implementing again. If you're struggling to implement the 2 or 3 habit changes that are going to move the needle the most, then let's just focus on one for today. And since I do work with mostly women, I would say like that's one of the biggest things that I harp on, because I do, now that I've been more in tune with my cycle, I kind of believe in that a little bit more, like how we feel throughout our cycle. So it's not about not taking action, it's about focusing on the action that you can take when you have the energy to do it.
Yeah, I think the habit change is super powerful and you can drastically change people's lives with that. If you had someone right now on the other side watching this and they're like, this sounds like me, and you had to talk to them directly, what would you say about weight loss to help motivate them?
I would say if you have been struggling, what have you been doing up until this point that has gotten you to where you are? Understand and know that usually it takes a little while to make a change, or a long while, right? You didn't get there overnight, and it's going to take longer than overnight to see results, but don't give up, because you are worth it and your health is worth it. For somebody, I think, that's really struggling, just remembering that and this is so cheesy and cliche, but without taking care of your health and without taking care of yourself, you really cannot be there for anyone or anything else. And you do not want to wait until something happens, until you have a health scare to make a change, because sometimes it's too late. And not in a doom and gloom kind of way, but sometimes it is too late. And that's not when you want to start trying to make a change, when you're in a desperate place. You want to make a change when you're maybe a little down and out, but really when you're feeling up, because that momentum is going to help you. That's what I would say.
That's great. Very well said. My favorite snacks are meat sticks.
Is that what we're doing now? Our favorite snack?
Yeah, it's yours.
I don't know. What is
I don't know.
I haven't been snacking
Not a
lately.
snacker.
Probably cookies though.
Okay, cookies. Healthy cookies. Keto cookies.
No, oh my God. There was one
Just
time when Joe was see, he did all the things. He was keto, and we got this slamming keto cookie recipe, and we were just starting to date, and literally we would make a batch on like a Sunday night and eat the entire thing. My heart rate would like spike up because it was so
so
much
much
fat.
butter.
But yeah, I like making like fun, healthier versions of stuff. So, and sometimes not, but mostly, you know, I'll play around with fun, healthy versions.
Awesome. So if you guys get any value from this, Lena has helped me drastically in this. And I'm excited to be talking about this because it's going to help me accelerate and continue my journey. So if anyone's interested, let us know and we'll help you in your journey too. Thank you guys for checking it out. See you at the next one.